That is a disgrace.
You're reassured, I'm reassured.
Not another one.
Mistakes were made. Peppa Pig world.
Thinks he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. The truth is he's Jabba the Hutt.
He lived rent-free in his head.
Tofu eating, wokarati.
Okay, hello and welcome back. So, the strikes. We have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Moon today. He's a senior lecturer in politics, languages and international studies. He's also the branch head of the UCU, as I said, the University and College Union.
Yes.
The UCU have announced strike action yesterday, today and next Wednesday. So the first question has to be, why are you striking and what does a strike involve, sir?
First of all, you don't need to call me. I don't think you'd even do that in a lecture. So no, right. Why are we on strike? It might feel like we've been constantly on strike because this is, to an extent, a long-running dispute over several issues. There's pay. We've had real terms pay cuts for 25% since 2009. The last pay offer was 3%. Inflation is now 12%. So what we're calling for is a realistic, acceptable pay offer. There's then working conditions. That's a call for anti-casualisation across the sector. Huge amounts of people are on fixed-term, hourly paid, casualised contracts, which means people don't know whether they've got a job in a month, in a week. This particularly matters for students because we're talking across the sector. We're talking like graduate teaching assistants, teaching staff in particular, researchers, and we're calling for a fair, decent contract for workers. We're also calling for work on the gender pay gap, the disability pay gap, the ethnic minority pay gap, which is terrible across the sector. We're also looking at workloads. Student numbers are up, staff numbers aren't rising with them, workloads continue to rise, which is just creating sort of mental health drain and so forth, as well as obviously impacting your working conditions, which is going to be something I'll bang on about constantly. And then finally, pensions. Again, we've been on strike regarding pensions of one sort or another since, back in 2016 and not before. But at the moment, last year we were given a 35% cut in real terms to the majority of people's pensions. We now have the facts and figures coming out from the pension board which shows that was not necessary, and we're calling for a return to the benefits that were cut. So, pay, pensions, working conditions.
Fantastic. And you said before in our lecture on Monday, on Tuesday, the strikes last year were not very effective. Why are these strikes going to be more effective, and why is striking necessary in the end?
Yeah, absolutely. What is a strike? I'll start with that, right? It's one of those things where, in particular, I think in this country it's worth talking about because we have relatively low unionisation compared to what we have had in the past. Education, the largest unionised sector in this country, after which you've got sort of civil service, obviously the train drivers, etc. and so forth. Strike action at its most basic is when we as workers are balloted by a union saying, are you willing to take industrial action over a certain issue? We voted for that with a significant turnout. You need to turn out at least half of all your members to be able to take legal strike action. Those are trade union laws. We got over 60% of people voting, with well over 80% saying yes to strike action. That's the largest mandate and turnout we've had in a long time. What it means is that when strike action is called, the workers, we essentially just refuse to work. We refuse to go into work, refuse to do our jobs, and therefore, of course, we're not paid. We're not paid for our labour nowadays, which means every day they're on a strike, we're not being paid. The role of a strike, the aim of a strike, is to essentially cause as much industrial pain to the employer as possible to force them to come to the negotiating table and bargain to an acceptable offer. Our labour is what produces the profit of the university. We are the ones who we teach the classes, we help run the library, we run the computer systems, we're in the students' union here giving you the support. Our union isn't just the academics, it's academic, professional services, it's academic related, it's researchers, it's across the board, and that's really important to remember as well. So by refusing to work, we suffer the high financial hit, but the aim is that basically, it's like a game of chicken with the university, which is, do you want this disruption to continue, or are you going to be willing to help negotiate? Now, this is a national union, and why things are different this year? Last year, we had a minority of universities out on strike. That meant that when it gets into the big national negotiating room, the majority of university vice-chancellors, the employers, have no real reason to bargain because they're not being hit by strikes. This time, every single university in the country is out on strike. There's 150 universities out on strike. Every single university is hit. Am I not being loud enough?
No, you're good. I think we're checking. It's all good. You're fine.
It's all good.
There
Okay.
we
Yeah.
go.
It's getting a bit more.
It's hard to tell.
It feels
when
closer. I'm
in
feeling
these
a little bit more
headphones.
sultry
Yeah,
voice.
but your dulcet
Late
tones
night
now,
radio.
so, fantastic. Okay. So why does the strike have to affect students? Because you're not negotiating with us. We do not have control over this, but obviously we're the ones affected. So lectures are cancelled for, I don't know how many percentage of students. I don't know how many people are actually striking at the moment, but my lectures have been cancelled on yesterday, and my seminar today is not on, for example. So why does it have to affect me and my studies? Because obviously I'm paying $9,000 at least for this, to be educated, and I think I speak for myself here that I support the cause and I want you guys to get what you want, but why does it need to affect me and my studies?
Absolutely. I'm not teaching a class today. It should be a lecture on equality and liberty, which has been cancelled for this. So why do students get hit? Well, we are, in one sense, it's difficult to be our union because our main economic bargaining is actually the influence in impacting students. And that's difficult because the number one thing our members care about the most, and it's not just be sort of blowing smoke, is the students. Like, constantly people just worry about the students and wanting to support the students. We generally do care, but realistically, the university makes its money through education. Therefore, that's the financial input. Our only realistic bargaining tool is our labour. If we want to have any influence, the only thing we can do is essentially say, we will not work, so you will not get the production that we do, which is teaching the classes, running the seminars, but it's also keeping the library opening, answering the emails, making sure the wiki page is functioning, all those sorts of things. All of that, which is what makes it possible for the university to make the money that it needs to make. Our only tool is to say, if you do not listen and negotiate, we will withdraw our labour. And that means you guys are being impacted. Realistically, therefore, what the role for the students is, the pressure is upon the employer because the pressure comes from the students. The students are demanding, bring this action to an end so that we can return to our classes, return to normal functioning. And the vital thing for that is that this does not become seen as staff versus students, where students try to pressurize the workers to kind of give up early, and instead it's staff versus employer, where the students pressurize the employer to say, what is the employer doing to make sure that you are lobbying and pushing to get a deal, which means staff can go back to work. Staff don't want to be on strike. We don't want to be losing money in a cost of living crisis in the run up to Christmas, standing out in the cold, although today is quite nice relatively. We also
really
don't
cold,
want
though.
to not be teaching. I genuinely love teaching. Hopefully that comes across in the class.
It
It's
does.
something that we enjoy
Yes, can
doing.
confirm.
So we don't want to be here. What we want is for students to essentially use your economic muscle, which is the money you're paying in, to demand and force the university to say, what are you doing to solve this problem? Because it's completely solvable.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so how can we use that force and voice then? Because I want to. I'm on the side of the strikers, and it would benefit my life massively if there was no strikes. But also, it would benefit my life if the working conditions for everyone working at the university was better, because I believe that people who have better existence are better, teachers and stuff like that. So how can we help? Because it feels quite helpless at the moment.
Yeah.
We can't. I do not know who you're negotiating with directly. I can't talk to them. I can't send them an email. How can we help?
Send
Because
a letter.
the university union here has decided to be in favour of the strikes without a referendum, because last year they asked everyone, do you want to be in favour of the strikes, and they didn't. Not enough people filled out the referendum form. So this doesn't appear to be an issue that the students are engaged with enough, at least to vote on it in the student union. I don't want to speak for all students here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in fairness to the SU here, who their support has been absolutely fantastic and is vital for us, because again, in terms of our economic lobbying, our industrial power, obviously we are the usual suspects complaining, but if the students' union are in the room talking to the Vice-Chancellor and putting that across, that matters a lot for us. So I really welcome that. I understand, frankly, even getting a referendum up running would have actually probably closed after this strike action, so I understand where they came from there. I would say last time it's true not enough people voted in that referendum, but at least those who did support us. But what can you do to support it? It's difficult. So we are in dispute currently with our university here, but our university alone cannot solve these problems. There is a university-wide pay scale which every single university is on, and it goes, every single worker at every single university is on it, unless you're at the professorial level in which you're above it. Although our union has negotiated a pay scale locally, another victory locally. But what that means is, what we need the university to be doing is essentially making its voice heard loudly and clearly within the national employers body, which is called UCU, and saying we need to push for a proper, acceptable deal which can close this down. And they can do that behind closed doors, and they can give us, say we're doing this, but we need some visible head above the parapet telling them you've got to make a deal. Because at the moment, we don't see this sort of action directly. Now, what students can do, therefore, is call upon the university to do that. We've asked people to write to the Vice-Chancellor, saying to him, can you tell me what you are doing to essentially push UCU and Universities UK, who are the body negotiating over on pensions, to make an acceptable deal to UCU members to bring this action to an end. We've asked for people just to retweet, to like, to engage with social media. There is a large propaganda element to this, okay? At this stage, the university knows the strength of the action based upon what it's possible to make visible. So yesterday on campus, we had a big protest with drumming and march around campus. I was in University Council. The room was vibrating with it. People had to speak up to be heard. It was phenomenal. You had the banner drop. You had the stuff up in Norwich, in the buildings.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Such an amazing thing to see. Then people down on the pickets. That visibility matters. Visible support of students for staff, whether it's on social media, on the ground, whatever it can be, it matters, because the university will be worried if it looks like students actually are getting behind this and demanding that the university do something, rather than just waiting for the staff to get knackered, worn out and beaten down.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one more question, and then we have a game to play.
Quick game.
To pit Striker versus Ben as an expert. But one last question is, does it affect the efficacy of the strike? Affect twice in a sentence there. To have not all strike, like not all members of, because there's some lecturers who are in different unions to the UCU, so sometimes they strike at different times. So because some lectures are on, some aren't, and that creates confusion for us. But also, I imagine for your cause, the fact that some lectures continue, it kind of like weakens your point a little bit, I guess.
So, what you have here is a perfect example of what's called the collective action problem, right, or the free rider problem. First of all, anyone in the education and research job family, so all the academics, their trade union is UCU. So you wouldn't be an academic and be in another union, but there are other workers on campus who will be in Unite or Unison, in particular in professional services. But and legally, if you are a member of a trade union that hasn't been balloted, you can't. You have to cross the picket line. You can't strike. But if you're not in a union, you do have the same legal rights to strike. So there's no reason that if someone isn't a member of UCU, they can't strike. They could also just join the union, which they should. But yeah, not everyone is out on strike, and there'll be a number of reasons for that. Some people will be ideologically opposed to the concept of striking. I've never truly understood the sort of simping for your boss and your workplace like that, but some people truly do. But if you've got some self-respect, you want to stand up for yourself and say that you are worth what you're worth. Look, the free rider problem is this. If this strike wins, and we win a pay deal, we win better contracts, we win action on the gender, racial and disability pay gap, we win lower workloads, we win a return of our pensions, all those people who didn't go on strike also get it.
Too.
They get it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So again, it's a cost-benefit analysis. Them not going on strike does, of course, undermine the strike. Realistically, if every single worker was out, this university grinds to a halt. It has to negotiate. The longer the picket line, the shorter the strike. The more people out taking strike action, the shorter it is, because you force negotiation. But the union has been growing. One of the great positives here is we are growing. We've made it over another psychological 100 levels. Okay, We're well over the 700s now, which is good. We've got good density within across the board now. Obviously, we're stronger in some places than others, but it's good density. The major thing here is we just want to be as strong as possible at this point to try and force negotiations early to avoid the need for any further action in the new year. That's absolutely the most vital point now. Employers, get around the table, there's a deal to be done, there's no reason to drag this out because we want this over as much as the students do.
Fantastic. Okay,
Right.
thank you. Thank you for coming in today.
Do you have time for a
Do you
game?
have time for a game?
We're meant to be marching down the hill to join the CWU and Bar Spa UCU in about 9 minutes, but come on, throw it at me.
Okay.
The game will
I'll
not
do
take
it
that
here.
long. Just to give you a brief timeline of the game, we asked you on Tuesday if you wanted to play a game, then we had to go and make a game. So we didn't actually have one when we asked, but we have one now, and it's called 2 Strikes and a Settlement. We're going to put Ben against Dr. Moon.
Right.
So the rules are basically there's 3 rounds and there's 3 strikes in each round. 2 of them are real; they're unusual
It's like
protests.
2 truths and a lie.
We've made up all the names, but the information we'll give you. 2 of them are real, 1's fake. You've got to tell us the fake one. If someone gets it wrong, we'll go to the other person. We can see who get the most points
Okay.
out of 3, basically. And so the first round, I'll read the name and then the bio, and then I'll do all 3. And if you want me to repeat one, I will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't rate my chances.
You
so
got
I'll
this,
give it a
Ben.
go.
You've got to believe in yourself. Right, so the milk attack. November 2012, Belgian farmers protested the fall in the price of milk by spraying milk on police. I put a joke in here, idly mad. The bee's knees.
cool.
Again, we made up all the names. The bee's knees, August 2008, environmental activists crouched outside a large honey factory for 2 days protesting methods of honey collection. The pothole protest. Since 2006, Canadians protested against pothole-filled roads by creating a calendar with pictures of them pointing at potholes. So, Dr. Moon, would you like to guess which one is the fake?
Well, the Belgian one sounds absolutely like something which would happen there. One of the tragedies of this country is we have incredibly punitive legal strike rules. We cannot get away with some of the fun stuff. But I'm going to assume the spray milk definitely happened. So then it's down to the bees and the potholes. People pointing at potholes is a classic, so I'm going to assume that is something which happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Your bee's knees, we made
bees,
that one
we
up.
made
No
it
one
up.
was protesting the bee method collection that we could find in this way. Okay, Ben, round 2 to you. Rewriting history. One university history society in Oklahoma rearranged every section of the library, protesting a lecturer's far-right views. Flashy flags. Activists in 2000 in Peru washed their flag to remove the dirty politics. They just gave it a good scrub. And tree sitting. Environmental activists sat in a Californian tree for 738 days to protest deforestation.
Alright.
Just talking. Sorry, there you go.
Yeah. So,
What do you reckon? Talk
Um,
us through your thought process.
Sitting in trees for a very long time sounds something that would happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
Flags or history.
So would you want to wash your flag? Would you think we could just give
flag
a
washing seems
good scrub?
a little bit minor.
It's quite a minor way of
Yeah.
protesting some awful things, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe in America that would be a big deal.
Oh, not in
It's in
Peru. Though.
Peru.
Do you think in Peru?
I don't think Peru
You
would
don't think
have
Peru? So you
such
think
a
the
big
flag is the
response.
fake one?
Yes.
So you're actually incorrect.
You're wrong.
What do you think, Dr. Moon? You can steal the point.
So it was what's left: trees or rearranging the room.
The library,
The
yeah.
library.
I'm good. I'm going to say, man, the trees sounds like just such a classic, but I can absolutely see the library happening as well. So I'm going to go and say the trees is wrong because it was so long. 2 years seems a very
You think
long
the tree is a lie?
No, I don't. It's a room. It's a room. It's a tree.
You think the tree's a lie?
The trees are a lie.
The trees are. You were wrong. It's rewriting history. We made
Turns
that one
out
up.
we're just
The
really
tree-
good at
the
coming
tree
up
thing
with
is good. We're glad
protests.
these work.
You've got
We
good
weren't-
ideas,
we haven't
I like
tried
it.
these out, so we weren't sure if they were believable. Okay, so it's still 1 to
Round.
Dr. Moon, none to Ben. I'll give this to Ben because he just failed the.
Absolutely.
This is my
Round three.
favourite round.
This is a good one.
Round 3, Pretter test. In 2017, protesters in London's Trafalgar Square protested the amount of Prets in London through a sit-in in the Trafalgar Square Pret. However, some people went to the wrong Pret, as there are 2 in
there are
Trafalgar
2
Square,
in
which kind of
Trafalgar.
is the point of the protest. Number 2, Chili Jean, brackets, is not my love. Chilean students demanded education reform by dancing to Michael Jackson's Thriller dressed as zombies in 2011. And Panda Express Party. UC Berkeley students protested during the opening of a Panda Express restaurant in 2009 by dressing up as pandas and walking around with rubbish bags. Which is the real? Which one's the real and which one's fake?
Alright. So my strategy of watching Dr. Moon to see if he was responsible
Did not work out. The poker face.
didn't
Can't tell.
really work. So Sadly, I don't know a lot about the number of Prets in London.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of
There's a
Prets.
lot.
It's like one every 10 metres, I suppose. It's really bad.
But I can't see people noticing a huge crowd around one Pret and going to the other one. That feels a little bit too far.
Yeah.
So
Which one are you saying?
I'll go for
Pret's
that
the
one.
lie.
You believe the Pret's a lie.
Lie.
You are correct.
You are
Pret is a lie.
correct.
I just wanted to put Preta test into the title.
Yeah, we came up with that
Um,
title and thought
so
we've
we-
got to make it work.
Unfortunately, I don't have a tiebreaker, so you both got 1 point, and it's just going to have to
It's-
be
Well,
like
that's
that.
good. That's
We
right.
didn't
Staff
think
and
about
students
it.
united. That's
Yeah.
Yay!
there's a
That's the message of
NUS
today's
member
show.
and a UCU member. So thank you so much for coming in,
Thank
sir.
you.
The one thing I wanted to check out here is like I know this is like the politics show and Ben's in here is like the don't do politics thing.
Yeah.
Strikes in some regard, I don't think we should see them as a politics
No.
thing. Everybody here is gonna have a job or has had a job, and you've had a job and
Let's
you've
hope
been
so.
forced to essentially
One day.
work under the rules of people who make the rules and you have to follow the rules. And the only power you've got within that workplace to have any say is your labour power. You're
Yeah.
doing the job. So if you see the strikes as actually educational about
Yes.
your future in the workforce, that might also be a positive. But anyway, beyond that, come down to the pickets, talk to people. We'd love to see people as much as possible. And more importantly, the louder students can be about a desire for the university to do everything it can to end this, the faster it will be done. Because here we go, you ready for it? Our working conditions are your learning conditions.
Yay! And on that
Fantastic.
note,
And on that note,
we'll
thank
let
you so
you
much
go
for
so
coming
you can
in.
march.
We're going to play you out
into
with your
town.
selected song
Yes.
of Dropkick Murphy. So thank you very much for coming in today, sir. And good luck with the
Sir.
ticket for the rest of the day. Sir, see you later.
This is University Radio Bath.
Hello, welcome back to A&E Politics. Dr. Moon has left us now to go and march into town.
He's off on his picket.
On
so it's just
striking.
me, Emily and Ben.
Just.
So it's yeah. So it's protest week.
It's
We thought we'd
protest week.
We make it all about the protests happening in the world. So
Yes.
there's a small sporting event happening. Emily doing conversation, but this is why Ben's here.
Yeah.
My
Yes.
endless fan.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, exactly.
the World Cup
we
is
don't-
happening.
The greatest event on earth.
Yeah, well, maybe not this year, but normally the greatest version. No. So, we're going to look at it through the lens, Mum, I know you're listening. It's not about football.
It's not about
That,
football.
but we are going to talk about the politics around football. So, this World Cup has obviously been surrounded by controversy. I think we all know at this point that
Yes.
thousands of migrant workers died building the stadiums. Qatar was given the World Cup in an extraordinarily corrupt way. No one is defending that. No one I know anyway is defending that. The fact that it's being held there is an atrocity for so many reasons. Lots of them didn't have my mic on, so people could actually hear that. It's a second show, people, second show. But so let's talk about some of the protests that were happening in the World Cup at the moment. So German players took a photo before their
I did
game
see
2
this.
days ago where they held their hands in front of their face, showing they've been silenced, referring to the fact that FIFA are not allowing teams to wear an armband which says One Love on it and has a heart with the LGBTQ.
Yeah, if you haven't
plus
seen the
flag
photo,
inside
do
it.
Google like German football team protest and have a look because it is quite a powerful
It's
image of the whole team standing there with.
referencing being silenced, and
Yeah.
it's a strong statement from the German FA,
Yeah.
and also their keeper had the armband on underneath his sleeves, so he is protesting actively against it. The reason this is a controversy is because the protest, FIFA said if the England team, the French team and the German team wore the One Love armband, which they were intending to do, they would give every single penalty, so a yellow card for every player.
Yeah.
Obviously in a football match that's very bad news, because if they
Yeah.
do one bad tackle, they're off the pitch, and that's very, very dangerous for your chance of winning the tournament.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of debate about whether or not England should have just taken the yellow cards as a protest form, because protest is a sacrifice and you've got to take a risk. And I do agree with that criticism. I do agree they should have done it anyway. But I do think we're getting slightly off the topic here, because the real atrocity is that FIFA think that LGBTQ rights is a political statement. That is unacceptable.
Yeah, it's
That
not.
is the problem. It's not that the England team backed off on wearing the armband, though that is bad. The problem is the World Cup is the organising body of global football, a massive monopoly in the football space, think that LGBTQ rights are a political statement. That is the problem here. That's the thing we should be focusing on. And just to background on Qatar, they believe homosexuality is abhorrent. If you're found out as being gay, you get put in prison for up to maximum 7 years.
I do have a question for both of you.
Oh, okay.
So the question is, if this World Cup was being held in a different country, I know there would be like the One Love armband. They might not kind of want to. I don't know. Is the armband only being worn because the World Cup's in Qatar?
No, I don't believe so. I think that there's been a lot of statements made by football teams in recent years supporting it.
There's been multiple campaigns to try and get like racism out of football, get discrimination out of football. So in the Premier League, they wear the captain. So Harry Kane for Spurs, for example, wears a rainbow armband as the captain armband. So this is a kind of form of protest that's been taking place.
If the World Cup was happening somewhere like here or in France, would FIFA still say you can't wear the armband, or is it just because it feels like a direct criticism of Qatar?
There's been another. I think they would wear them anyway, but the point is we wouldn't like notice it. No one notices in the Premier League when then people are wearing these armbands and stuff. I think the fact that they've made it, you're not allowed to do this. Makes it more wrong.
Makes it more of a.
It makes it also notice it because we wouldn't notice otherwise. I don't think, and I don't think like the fact that they are not allowing these symbols, and also they've been stopping people. So people trying to go to the Wales game on Monday came in with like Wales bucket hats, but they also had the rainbow on it, and they were stopped from entering the World Cup. And they were same with a T-shirt with like a big rainbow circle around it. They stopped people entering based on these symbols, which is like it's a real problem. I remember in the 2020 Euros, they were held a game in Hungary, I think it was, and they lit up the. Because UEFA said that they couldn't have the armband, so they lit up the stadium. The Germans lit up the stadium in Germany on the day of the match with the pride flag. So this kind of anti-LGBTQ mentality has been in football for a little while, but it's awful that the World Cup is being held in Qatar right now.
So FIFA have said that, is this right, that if you wear the armband you get a yellow card?
Every single player on the team gets a yellow card,
I know England have said are not wearing the armband. Have any teams said, okay, fine, we'll take that forfeit?
Not so far, but as I said, the German goalkeeper had the armband on during the match.
Does he get a yellow card, or is it only if it's visible?
I don't think they've taken any action against it. I think there's an element of they could try and call the bluff, because I think that if they did that would make a PR storm, because Germany, England and France are three of the biggest teams in the tournament, and France, for example, are the favourites to win because they won the last World Cup. So I think if they were to try and say you actually kick off Mbappe for one foul because he's already got a yellow, I think there'll be absolute outrage, and it's annoying that the outrage would come because this late there should already be this level of outrage at the fact that the World Cup's being held there, and this stance on these rights as well.
So you said England, France, Germany, are they the favourites?
France are definitely the favourites. I couldn't tell you. Germany, England. Sorry, Maxime, haven't been great for a while as a football team, but they've still got a top team. They're still really good. Ben is more of an expert on
Ben,
this
who's
than I am.
Who's going to be in the final? Predict it.
Give us the Argentina.
So Argentina coming into the tournament were seen as a strong contender before losing their opening game in a bit of an upset.
Scandal.
Which happened to Germany as well.
Yeah.
But so whoever is in the final, hypothetically, whoever, do you think the team in the final, because the sanction of the yellow card is less because the tournament's going to be over, right? Do you think they'll wear the armbands?
But then in the final, if you get a red card and you're down to 10 men, that's even worse. But
okay, I don't.
I think perhaps if both teams did it, that would be the only way to maybe ensure there's some level of fairness if both teams get a sanction.
I've got a take from my dad, who says that they should have all worn 2 armbands, got 2 yellow cards, and all been sent off, and then the game would have been called off, which would have been great for me because
less football.
But actually, that's a good idea. They should organise that for the final. I think.
Certainly,
let's get it started.
Because it's not unlikely that the teams in the final would be France and another a Germany or a England. It's not unlikely. I'm not saying it's going to be that way, but that's not an unlikely situation. So the fact that they're kind of cracking down on these
Yeah.
voices now is
but
completely wrong. I also have another take
Okay.
from Ayana, who's just said that she does notice when they wear the armbands in football. So this is an opinion show.
Well
and
done, Ayana.
So when Ayana watches football, she notices the armbands, which is great, which is the point of them. So I should also say the England team are protesting in a very, very minor way. They're kneeling at the start of the games after the national anthem. When they say they're placed on the pitch, they're kneeling, which I guess good. It's enough.
It's been a long-standing.
The
protest.
kneeling.
It's not. They just change whatever they're kneeling for every single time.
Yeah, so not only the armbands, the protests at the World Cup and kneeling, and I think the German team also said they were wearing like kind of multicoloured boots as their like.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, but also the Iranian team didn't sing their national anthem. In protest.
Yes, so the Iranian team didn't sing the national anthem. Now, I don't want to talk too much about the Iran protest
that's
because
a whole hour
it's
show
very,
on its
very
own.
serious and it's really somber and serious. And also, we're talking over the Me Channel theme tune right now. So I don't think the kind of level of seriousness is coming across. But what's happening in Iran right now is atrocious. We'll just give you the brief on it. A woman was killed called Mahsa Amini, who was killed by the literal term, the morality police in Iran for not wearing her hijab correctly. She was beaten to death. And since then, women across Iran, and men as well, but mostly women, have been leading a protest, taking their hijabs off. Yeah,
cutting their hair, wearing
saying
clothes
death to the
they're not allowed
dictator,
to wear.
referring to the supreme leader of Iran. And the situation there is very serious. Thousands of people have been killed. The police there are cracking down on them massively. They're trying to kind of curb the protests in the most violent way possible, and it's incredibly upsetting. And the Iranian football team have been saying in interviews, they haven't been saying too much because obviously they're from Iran and they don't want to get in trouble themselves, but they refused to sing the national anthem when that played in the World Cup game against England last week, and they've also been quite outspoken against the regime in the limited ways they are able to without putting their own lives in danger as well. So I think that's admirable as well. Obviously, we support the protests in every single way. And we will do at some point a proper show where we discuss the actual protests.
Yeah, because it is very important and will have very long-standing effects in Iran.
Exactly. So now on to a brief bit of politics, unless Ben has something to say.
Yeah.
I see him.
I just wanted to ask, so we've been talking a lot about all these protests and how horrible everything surrounding the World Cup seems to be.
Yeah.
Does that mean we shouldn't be enjoying the football?
We were talking about this.
It's a difficult debate because, part of me is like, yeah, we shouldn't be watching it, but also I really enjoy the World Cup, and it's entirely selfish, and it's my opinion. So I understand that, and there's got to be a certain level of, if you're watching it, you're in some way supporting it. But I would also argue that because Qatar wanted to host the World Cup here, I didn't know anything about Qatar before this World Cup. I didn't know much about it. I knew where it was. I knew that it was kind of oil rich from Saudi money, but I didn't know much else about it. Since then, we've discovered the extent of the corruption that gave them the tournament and the extent to the way they crack down on people's individual liberties in Qatar. I think it's put the spotlight on them in the worst possible way. Now, this is not enough. Obviously, us knowing about it and going in both eyes open to the tournament doesn't change anything. But what happened after the 2018 World Cup in Russia is that everyone going into the tournament was talking about how awful a place to host a World Cup Russia is, because there's obviously loads and loads of human rights abuses happening in Russia at the time. And obviously, since then, they've started invading Ukraine. There's loads of negative things in Russia. But after the tournament, all we could talk about was the football, because it was a really good World Cup. And we need to talk about Qatar and the atrocious human rights record and the fact that these people get sent in jail for their sexuality. Women aren't allowed to drive, aren't allowed to do certain freedoms that we all express in the UK and we believe that people should have. They aren't allowed to do that, and we need to remember that. And when we think of Qatar, and hopefully this tournament can backfire, because they wanted this tournament to be welcome to Qatar. We are this great country who are going to host an amazing football match. You should come and give us tourist money and stuff and kind of burnish their reputation. It's called sports washing, and we are the audience here. We don't have to let them do that. So that's my defence of watching the World Cup.
Yeah, I don't really think of Qatar as a kind of holiday destination.
Not about to hop on a plane to Qatar.
Yeah, but so the World Cup, all in all, I think yes, you can enjoy it. You can watch, because if you like football, I do not. But if you do...
Do you not?
No.
Not football,
no. But if you do, then but you've just got to be mindful of the kind of awful things that have been put into it, and also talking about it, even us just talking about it now, bringing awareness, thinking more kind of critically of these things, is all important.
You're listening to University Radio Bath.
Welcome back to A&E
Yay.
Politics with Adam, Emily, and Ben.
Ben!
We love Ben. Ben is the undisputed MVP of the show. So we are going to now talk about politics. So really, really quickly.
What on earth is going on in the House of Commons?
It's not
Lovely.
necessarily the
There we
House
go.
of
Not
Commons,
the House of
more
Commons.
the Supreme Court.
Hey. Well, I just an excuse to use the old TikTok audio. Yeah, so what's happened in the Supreme Court? So Scotland, really, really quickly. The UK Supreme Court has said Scotland's devolved government does not have the legal right to hold an independence referendum.
Yes. So, yeah, Nicola Sturgeon was saying, we're going to have a second Indie Ref 2 next October. She was just saying, like, they're just going to do it. And it went to the courts in Scotland, and then they said, we don't know, sorry. And they
it's the
sent
highest
it to...
authority court they could, which is the UK Supreme Court.
Yeah, they sent it to the Supreme Court, and they announced, on Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday,
That,
I think.
that legally they're not allowed to just hold their own referendum.
Which isn't unexpected, I don't think. To
The
be honest.
decision was quick, though.
It was, yeah. There was a possibility they weren't actually going to rule on it. They were just going to kind of defer it.
Yeah.
But the Scotland and the SNP, the Scottish Nationalist Party, Nicola Sturgeon's
Yes.
party, have been campaigning on a second independence referendum for a long, long time. And I'm just going to play you her reaction to the news.
Let's be absolutely blunt. A so-called partnership in which one partner is denied the right to choose a different future, or even to ask itself the question, cannot be described in any way as voluntary or even a partnership at all. So this ruling confirms that the notion of the UK as a voluntary partnership of nations, if it ever was a reality, is no longer a reality. My expectation, in the short term at least, is that the UK government will maintain its position of outright democracy denial. That position is, in my view, not just unsustainable, it is also utterly self-defeating.
So that's Nicola Sturgeon
Yeah.
reacting to the news. And
Yeah.
I have to say, opinion show, I really like Nicola Sturgeon. And I do agree with her on this argument, because in our system of democracy, our representational democracy, if you believe that Boris Johnson and his Brexit party got a mandate, which arguably in our system he did, he got 45% of the vote, he had a massive majority in the House of Commons in 2019 to win and get Brexit done, to quote him. She also has a mandate, because she and her party win the vast majority of the seats in Scotland. They, I think, all but 3 MPs from
Yes.
Scotland are SNP MPs.
Yes.
So she wins the argument on, and every single time her number one manifesto pledge
is independence.
Independence
I do
referendum.
think the only thing that people can say is that, well, they did have a referendum, and the result was 55 to stay in the UK,
Yeah.
45 to leave.
It was
And
2014.
but that's a very close margin.
It's quite a close margin, and
Brexit, that
one
whole
of the
thing.
things that the SNP argue a lot
hadn't
is
happened.
that they said, if you want to be in the EU, stay in the
Yeah,
UK, because Scotland, if they want to join the EU, there's an argument that the EU countries like Spain would not let them in,
Yeah.
because there's a region of Spain that wants to potentially devolve
Yes,
from Spain, and then Catalonia would want to then
Yeah,
join
there's
the
a lot
EU
of-
as a whole. So then it would, if Scotland then broke off from the UK
Yeah.
and joined the EU, there's arguments that Spain would be like, that Catalonia would want to follow, and Spain
Yeah.
would be like, you're not allowed to join the EU because I don't want to give them the example
Yeah,
of how they can
so
do
one
it.
of the reasons people voted to stay part of the UK in 2014 was
2014,
that they would be part of the EU, and now we've left the EU. The Scots are going, well, hang on a second. We've been taken out of this when we didn't want to, and we voted to stay with you, to stay in the EU.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But then I'm thinking, if there's a second Scottish referendum, can we have another Brexit referendum?
Oh,
Just
please.
bring that, dredge that
Opinion
back
show.
up again.
I would love a second Brexit referendum. So what are the SNP's options now? What can they do?
Yes.
So they can't call an election without Westminster legislating for it. Rishi Sunak, I forgot who the Prime Minister was for a second. I almost said
Who
Boris
is it?
Johnson.
Who's it now?
I think it's Rishi Sunak.
Grant
I haven't
Shapps?
checked the news today. Mr. Shapps.
Mr. Shapps?
So Rishi Sunak has said he's not going to help call for an election, which, surprise, no. And also Keir Starmer has said he's
referendum.
not going to allow for a referendum on Scottish independence
Yeah.
if he became Prime Minister, which is looking
Yes.
increasingly likely from the polls. So for Nicola, it's looking pretty bad.
What are your
'cause
options,
she
Nicola?
can't do
Well-
much, because she's already got as many SNP
Yeah.
MPs in the House of Commons as she literally can, because
Yeah.
there aren't that many seats in Scotland.
Yes.
So there's options. She she said what she said she's going to do. I'll go through first. She said she's going to make the next referendum, the next election,
general election.
So the 2024, we think, or 2025.
Yeah, somewhere about then.
She will make her number one manifesto commitment again, an independence referendum, and it will be a referendum on that. So if they win that, she's going to say Rishi Sunak and his top team have rejected that claim, that's how it works, but they seem to pick and choose their mandates, but we'll get onto that in a little bit.
Yeah.
She could also potentially hold an illegal referendum where everyone in Scotland, because they have a devolved power, they could get everyone in Scotland to, well, not everyone, but everyone who wants to vote in a referendum to show that there's a massive majority of people who wanted to leave the UK, and then that obviously swings public opinion.
This is what happens in Catalonia as well. They've held illegal referendums there, so it's kind of like the comparison between the two is quite strong.
Obviously, I mean, no referendum is legally binding. So Brexit, we didn't actually have to do that. We could have just used it advisory.
Hey, politicians, we didn't have to do that.
Yeah, that's not how it works, because Parliament is sovereign, and Parliament always can do what it wants.
So Nicola Sturgeon saying that the next election is her kind of fake referendum is a bit of a gamble.
It is a bit of a gamble because
she currently has all the Scottish seats. Not all.
Not all of them. I think there's two Conservative ones and there's one Labour.
Yeah, but then so she's basically saying, well, if you voted for me last time but you want to stay part of the UK, don't vote for me.
Yeah, this is weird because I'm a unionist. I like the union.
Yes.
But I also would probably vote for the SNP because I think they're a really good party and they advocate for Scotland in a way that I don't think a national party can.
They should have candidates standing everywhere, I think.
Yeah, I would vote for the SNP down in
Ian Blackford.
Down in Bath. Yeah, no,
I love that guy.
That sounds. Ian Blackford is
He's
a force.
amazing. He's the head of the leader of the SNP in Westminster. He has the most amazing accent. Talks about his sheep. He's great.
Yes, he has lambs. He's great. He's a really lovely man.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
Ben loves the lamb.
Look, go and watch some clips of Ian Blackford.
He tweeted it.
Some
videos of his lambs in summer. It was very, very
just
cute.
Frolicking around in the Scottish Highlands.
So I'm just going to talk very briefly about how referendums work, because I find the government's position on this untenable. For the record, I think the SNP should be allowed to have a referendum because that's what democracy is, and they have voted for the SNP in every single election since I think 2011. They've been the majority party in Scotland since the Conservative government took over in the UK after Gordon Brown.
Oh, sorry, I have another stat.
Stats, remember.
Okay, so if we're going back to Nicola Sturgeon saying that if she gets more than 50% of the vote, then she has the mandate to become independent. Well, the SNP have never actually had 50% or more.
Why is that, Emily?
Well, I don't know, just voting. But the most they've ever had is, I think it was 49.79%. So on the cusp.
On the cusp, yeah.
But so it is risky. If before they'd had kind of 70-80%, you'd think, okay, fair enough. But this is a gamble for Nicola Sturgeon.
This is a gamble for Nicola Sturgeon.
Anyway, why have they never had that?
Well, because it's because of our electoral system.
Oh,
First past the
that
post
old thing.
Is not a majoritarian electoral system, because if you have 5 candidates, you only have to get 21% of the vote to win.
Yeah.
And so Nicola Sturgeon, for example, and her seats, does not sit in Westminster. She sits in the Scottish Parliament, which is done a different electoral system. So Ian Blackford, for example, only has to win. I think there's 6 candidates running in his races. Obviously, they don't all get an even proportion of the vote, but he doesn't have to win anywhere near the majority.
He just has
of
to
people
win
in his
one more
constituency.
vote than the next most popular
and
person.
Then he becomes.
And then he's.
And every
MP.
other vote is not counted. This is one of the reasons why we got a massive skewed Parliament from 2019 with Boris Johnson only getting 45% of the vote. If you tallied up, this is my favourite little hobby horse. If you tallied up every single vote for non-Brexit parties, so people who want a second referendum, it's actually 55% of the vote. The parties were 50. I think it's like 53.2.
Is that including the Labour Party?
Including the Labour Party.
Because were the Labour Party
their stated policy was second referendum?
Was it? Are you sure?
It wasn't. It was confusing because They said they would, but Liberal Democrats were pro second referendum. Green Party were pro for second referendum. All those parties
the Labour
together,
Party were
all the
very
votes
much
share across the country. Jeremy Corbyn, I think, was very much on the fence.
Fine, yeah.
Because I think everyone in the Labour Party was kind of broadly supporting a second referendum. Jeremy Corbyn personally didn't like it, but he begrudgingly.
There's
came
a question
to that
mark next to the Labour Party.
But that is 55%. But Boris Johnson gets a over 80-seat majority on 45% of the vote because you don't have to win the majority of voters. You just have to win the most in a constituency.
Yeah, and I've just remembered, it turns out this country is not very good at referendums, because we did have a referendum to change the voting system in 2011 and people didn't vote for it.
So we're going to change it from first past the post, FPTP, to AV, which is you get 2 votes and you get to choose your 2 favourite people.
Yes.
So it's not, to be fair, it's not the best proportional representation system, but it is definitely better than we have now.
But AV, they didn't vote for it.
No.
Brexit, they did. Like, I feel like maybe we should just not be allowed referendums. Well, let the Scottish
Apart
have
from
one.
the Scottish one, that's fine.
Everyone else, no, don't go near it.
Please stop with the referendums. We're going to now touch on, I think, my least favourite man in politics is Mr. Farage.
Yeah, no, I don't want to touch on him.
Over
please.
the week, oh God.
Can we? I don't want to touch him with a barge pole.
Over the weekend, there was a bunch of stories leaked to the Times about potential rejoining the single market, which is not.
That's good.
Rejoining the European Union.
Yes.
It's rejoining the 4 freedoms and the big kind of trading arrangement in Europe.
Yeah.
Nigel Farage said in a video that I could not download the audio for because it wasn't on YouTube, he said that he doesn't want, coming back to frontline politics is not on his bucket list, but if we betray the British people, he will return and he will deliver a mandate. It's very Trumpian in his rhetoric. So real quick.
Wait, Ben, when we say Nigel Farage, what's your immediate reaction?
I want to leave the room and throw up somewhere.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty
fair. Opinion show.
This is an opinion show.
Unfortunately, this arrangement. So what is it? They keep talking about a Swiss style deal. This is the code word they use. So Switzerland is not a member state of the EU, but they're in regulatory alignment with the EU, which means their standards of food, their standards of goods are all the same because they're signed up to the 4 freedoms. They're part of the Schengen
They're not
area.
having any chlorinated chicken.
There's no chlorinated chicken in Switzerland. You can check. So that would bring us in alignment with the EU market, which would boost trade and would boost our ability to fund bring people into jobs which are sorely needed right now. There's a staffing crisis in the NHS, in teaching. There's so many areas where we need more people. It's almost like closing the doors to the EU immigration was a really, really bad idea.
This is an opinion show.
So it's a cheap knockoff of full EU membership. You basically have to align with the EU's regulatory alignments without being able to vote on what those are. Yeah. When you're a member of the EU, you get to choose, as we did. We got to choose lots and lots of the trading arrangements. So we vetoed, when we were members of the EU, lots and lots of kind of further regulation on goods and services that would come to the UK. And we even set up some systems like the Schengen area that we're not even a part of, that they all are part of in Europe and we're not even part of. So it's a worse version of being in the EU, but I, as a Remainer, still
am I right?
What is the Schengen area?
What is the Schengen area? Well, what is the Schengen area, Emily? Do you remember what the Schengen area is? I might just get my A-level notes out.
I can't.
The Schengen area is the area with no border checks between countries.
Oh, yeah.
So the Schengen area, so if you're trying to walk from Germany to France, you can just drive.
You can just
or walk, I guess
right
that's my metaphor I was using. You can just walk between Germany and France. But obviously when you go to the UK, you have a border.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to be part of that system. No. So we have a system where we're not part of that system. It kind of makes sense because we are separated geographically from the EU. So we want to have a border. But also we're very much on borders. I don't know if you've noticed our political rhetoric is quite a lot about borders.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
So I
am bored of borders.
Terrible. Thanks, Emily. Okay, so moving swiftly on. Let's just talk about Nigel Farage really quickly.
So he's trying to make a comeback, which is so just go away. Like you were leader of UKIP, then you disappeared for a bit, then you started your own party, the Brexit party. It didn't do well. No one cares.
Nigel Farage has run for office 15 times. He has never been elected MP, which is my favourite thing, I think, ever. There's nothing greater than the fact that he's never succeeded. And again, you don't have to get that many votes to become an MP. You only have to win 20%.
The lesson for this week is, if at first you don't succeed, try 15 times and then give up, please.
Surely someone had on their 2022-23 bingo, Nigel Farage makes another comeback.
But also, I love how he's always anti-career politicians. This is the most career politician man anyone has ever seen. He now hosts a show on weeknights on the Fox News equivalent in the UK, GB News, and he's marauding against the Conservative Party as a government. He is a career politician. He's been doing this his entire life.
Circling back to the strikes, the leader of Mike Lynch, he's the leader of the RMT, the Railway
Maritime and Transport Union.
He someone went up to interview him yesterday, and they went, "We're from GB News," and he went, "Nigel Farage isn't around here, is he?"
Hey,
Like,
fantastic.
Yes. Good old Mike.
So I just wanted to bring back some Nigel Farage quotes.
Yes.
So this is a tweet from Nigel Farage. I'm going to read it word for word. He was going to a UKIP conference. It's in 2014, 2016. It's in the teens.
Back when UKIP were relevant.
Back when UKIP were almost like...
This is an opinion show.
This is an opinion show. Although they have no MPs. I think it's fair to say they're not relevant.
They're irrelevant.
Anymore. They won 3 once. Anyway.
I think they won 1.
I think they won 3 in 2015, but then there was another...
We'll have to fact check.
There's another election quite soon after that. So yeah, Nigel Farage said, "It took me 6 hours and 15 minutes in the car to get there. It should have taken 3.5 to 4. There's nothing to do with professionalism. What it does have to do with is a country in which the population is going through the roof, chiefly because of open door immigration and the fact the M4 is not navigable as it used to be." So he was late for a conference, not because he's not a professional, because of the immigrants filling up the roads, which... is certainly a take.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree.
Yeah, that is a take.
I'm going to use that when I miss my 9 a.m. It's all the immigrants.
Sorry, Dr. Moon.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
It's all those immigrants on the roads.
Yeah, but then, to be fair, like, all this threat of him coming back, he was never really that. Like, he couldn't do anything anyway,
No.
so
And
sure,
what he
why
does
not?
do-
Let's just let this old man have some ambition,
Yeah,
okay?
and what he does do is actually take votes. He's a right winger.
Oh,
he
this is a
takes
good
votes
point.
away
This is a
from the
good point.
Conservative Party. So I, as a lefty maniac, I was going to say Romaniac, but then I'm massively to the left. He will take votes away from the Conservative Party if he runs in their seats, which, as I just talked about with our electoral system, will often mean that the Labour Party or parties
might
on the
benefit.
left, like the Green Party, are more likely to win their seats because they'll take those crucial votes away from the Conservative Party. So I'm kind of pro him coming back, but I do have a clip of
that's a hot
Nigel
take.
Farage saying some very lovely things about people with
Let's hear
AIDS.
that.
Do you still feel that people with HIV shouldn't be allowed into this country?
Do I think the National Health Service is there for British people? Yes, I absolutely do.
So some lovely deflection there, as politicians often do. They don't answer the question.
A pivot, as Matt Hancock was talking about on I'm a Celeb.
Oh no, not I'm a Celeb.
You talked about the World Cup,
It's
okay?
just that's your little hobby.
Yeah,
horse.
he's just a despicable man.
He is.
In 2002, I found this quote yesterday.
Oh,
he said, quote, "I think that politics needs a bit of spicing up." In 2002.
have to say.
Well, Nigel, I think it's been spiced enough.
It's spiced enough. Can you please leave?
Can we please
the politics?
have some milk?
Can we return to some English cooking?
Yes,
no,
please,
exactly.
with no bland. I want bland.
I want potatoes. I want beans. I want fish fingers.
Potato waffle.
Exactly, that'd be good. So yeah, he also believes that we should have a private health service. Although when you ask him about it, he's always like, "No, I don't think that. I think we should have more efficiencies in the NHS and we should devolve some powers away from it," which is just code for "I want American-style healthcare." He also thinks Trump's a swell guy. He's
They're
just
besties, aren't
they're
they?
besties. Yeah, he was saying that the election
Vile.
was stolen. He had a
Absolutely
go
vile.
at Piers Morgan, noted socialist Piers Morgan, about being fake news media because Piers Morgan was saying you should probably get the COVID vaccine. So like these people, like he's too right for Piers Morgan.
Yeah, you know something's wrong when someone is criticising Piers Morgan and you agree with Piers Morgan.
Exactly. My mum's just messaged me saying, "You want fish fingers?" No, I want vegan fingers. Right.
I'll have fish fingers, please.
Emily, I think Ben would probably like fish fingers.
I would love some fish
He
fingers.
likes fish
Are
fingers as well. We're
nearly done.
We
but
are done.
We've got a song.
We have a song
dedicated to Mr.
Yes,
Farage.
Mr. Farage. So why is it this song,
Well,
Emily?
back in, I can't remember when, probably around 2015, 16, someone so beautifully threw a milkshake over Nigel Farage as their protest against him. So, Nigel, I know you're listening. This song
This
is for you.
dedicated to you, sir.